The the biggest thing you can do is decide that you are going to move away from being a passive consumer into being an active participant. You can decide that you're going to start to take control of these processes and be much more intentional about your usage. What do you want the technology to do for you?
Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Most of us reach for our phones before we even get out of bed. We rely on them to connect, to work, to unwind, and sometimes we just can't put them down. Dr. Kaitlyn Regehr studies how technology shapes our minds, relationships, and families. Today we explore how to live well in a connected world, understanding our digital nutrition, and how we can build a healthier future with technology. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Kaitlyn. It's so good to see you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk about your book. So you have a new book out. It's called Smartphone Nation: Why We're All Addicted to Our Screens and What You and Your Family Can Do About It.
That's right.
I am the first to admit I'm addicted to my screen. And, I think for a long time I said that I wasn't, but I actually am, especially after I found out from you that the average adult checks their phone over 150 times a day without even probably realizing it, right?
Yeah, it's just habitual. You just pick it up and you stroke that screen.
I walk around my house, my home, with my phone in my pocket. Why do I do that?
Well, because we have moved away from technology as a household appliance. That is to say, a phone which sat on the kitchen wall, a desktop that maybe sat in the middle of the family living room or maybe in your home office, even a television set, that's big and prominently displayed as a household appliance. We have moved away from a lot of those features and we have made this into a personal device. So you no longer call a household, you call a person. Mhm. And and so actually, probably for you, if you don't have that phone in your pocket, or at least you feel that way, that you are not contactable because you've probably stripped away out of your home a lot of those technological appliances by which people would contact you in the past. So they can only really contact you. They can't contact your house. And we through this hyper personalization, we have created these devices that we are completely dependent on. It is how we connect, it is how we process information, and it is also how we physically navigate the world. I mean, we will, within a generation, lose the ability to read maps, paper maps. And maybe we're okay with that. Maybe we can say it's all right. We don't need to learn to use paper maps or what my daughter refers to as pirates. We don't need to be pirates anymore and read a paper map because we have technology to do it for us. But because we are creating these dependencies, we are also losing skill sets that makes our dependencies even greater still.
Right. That's okay. So that's interesting. I never really looked at it that way, but I did yesterday when I was, doing your mom errands around the house, right? Getting things ready for the week sort of thing. And I could feel my phone in my pocket. And I thought, why, Tamara, why do you have your phone in your pocket in your own house? Running the laundry up and down the stairs and my phone's in my pocket because I might have to wait. The clothes might not be totally dry. And what will I do? Think with my own brain? No, I need to pull it out and scroll some Instagram so I can maybe be inspired to clean my house more. I don't, it's kind of crazy.
Yes. Yeah, and probably what you will receive through your feed in order to fill maybe even just a minute of pause, you're right to say you'll probably be fed something that is kind of replicating your life in some way. It's like when people talk about, particularly people with younger children who have this regret that they keep looking at their phone in front of their kids. This is a phenomenon that we now call phubbing, phone snubbing, where people are using their phones in front of their kids, and that is impacting childhood development. We're now seeing. The sad thing is that often if you ask people what they're looking at when they're on their phones in front of their kids, it's other people's kids. It's videos of other people's kids. So they're actually being pulled out of their own life to just watch someone else's parallel life.
Ugh. When you put it that way, it sounds really sad. And I mean, what I like about, I mean, because you're basically, what you're saying, Kaitlyn, is that, your phone's fine. And it's the quality of what you're doing with your phone, not the quantity, right?
Right.
And I think that's because we have this idea that, oh, someone like, Kaitlyn Regehr comes along and she's like, oh, your phone's bad, and we're spending too much time on it. No, that's not what you're saying. You're saying this is a part of our lives now. This is how we connect. It's what you're doing.
So let's break that down. I think there's a lot of unethical practices that are used to keep us hooked, to manipulate us. But the digital space in and of itself is not problematic. And there are lots of amazing things that have come from these platforms and the right to share voice. I mean, look at what we're doing right now. We're having this conversation. You are on the west coast of Canada. I'm in London, England, and we are connecting because of digital technology. And before that, the opportunities for normal people, for women, for minorities to share voice were much more limited than they are today. We can collectivize, we can come together, and there is beautiful things about the internet. At the same time, the normal guidance that we used to give, particularly to parents, which was screen time guidance, that is limiting the dosage to about 1 to 2 hours a day, doesn't really work anymore because it assumes that all screen time is equal. Screen time is about the quantity of consumption, not the quality of consumption. And what we want to start thinking about is putting quality, information rich, or positive experiences into our bodies by way of screens. We want it to inform us. We want it to be nutrient rich in terms of education. We want it to be working for us, not us just passively consuming everything that's put in front of us. We wouldn't do that with anything else.
It's so funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking, what do I spend most of my time looking at, right? And I know I'm not different than any other person. If I were to go into my phone right now and look and see how many screenshots I've taken, I'm not kidding when I tell you I probably have 90,000 screenshots on my phone, mostly of recipes or inspired things that I will never find again. Like there's so many of them on my phone. I'm like, where's that banana bread recipe that I wanted to make for I'll never find it. It's gone. Like, why am I, do you know what I mean? I'm so obsessively, I'm going to do this garden design. Click. It'll never happen. I'll never find that tree again. That tree is gone in my photos because we're getting that hit, right? When we see it, we're like, oh, I love that. And I'm going to do that. Click. And I spend more time looking for it. Do you know what I mean? It's so interesting. Like, that's my hit of addiction, right?
And so the question is, though, is it serving you? And if it is, if at the end of a period of usage you feel good, then maybe that's an okay thing. If at the end of a period of usage you don't feel good, then you need to question if it's the best thing for you. I use in the book I talk about something called a walkthrough method where you scroll through a period of usage with your partner, which is super cringy. Exactly, because it says so much about us. But if your partner says to you, "Huh, you're getting a lot of pictures of kitchens we can't afford," you might want to ask if that's the best thing for you. Or if they say, you're getting a lot of ads for plastic surgery, is that good for you? Does that make you feel good? Is it serving you? And if the answer is no, make another choice. And you can actively decide. Now you can decide to make a choice to remove that application altogether from your home screen. You can decide to do a spring clean and actively clean up that app. You unfollow, go on an unfollowing spree, follow things that don't serve you, follow things that don't make you feel good. If you already bought that bathing suit for vacation, you don't need to keep following that brand and like looking at more bathing suits. You can do a spring clean, or you can make a very conscious choice about what you want to be fed, and you game your algorithm, and you actively look for the things you want, and you quickly move past things you don't. Do not linger on it. Do not comment on it. Don't even report it. And you will train your machine learning. And I know people who will go into their kids' TikTok at night and like actively search for science videos so that they can like train machine learning. I mean, I think ideally you would do that with your teens and you talk to them about how to be much more empowered and much more in control of these processes. But the truth is that that does work. You need to do it regularly and you need to keep it up and you need to be intentional about that usage, but you can. You can make a choice to not just consume everything that's fed to you.
How important is what we do as parents to how our kids will act around their phones or social media or whatever it is? How important is that?
Yeah, so I think we should be seeding ideas of healthy engagement from an early age. Um, and I have very young kids, and I already talk to them about healthy screen engagement. So one thing for really young kids I talk about is bigger is better. That is to say, big screens in communal spaces is often better than little screens in isolation. So, if you are sitting together as a family watching a full length film like a Julie Andrews film, pausing for breaks, using that moment to have a little conversation about what World War II is, have kind of collective viewing experience or what we call interactive viewing, that is generally going to be better than a kid alone with a set of headphones on, scrolling through an algorithmic feed on an unregulated space. That is going back to our quality over quantity thing. That is a qualitatively different experience for that young person. So for little kids, we can start saying from a really early age, bigger is better, looking for regulated spaces, and seeding the idea that you talk about what you see on screens. If something doesn't feel good, if something's scary, if something feels weird in your tummy, you can talk about what you see on screens. And that is super important because whenever we hear of these absolute tragedies where we lose a young person to social media consumption, so often it is because they have viewed that content in isolation, often alone in their room, and they didn't feel they could talk about it because the feed had become so hyper personalized. It had become almost embarrassing. Had become something that they do not share about themselves. And so it closed them down and they didn't talk about it. So, what we want to be doing is opening up these information silos and having conversations together as a family about what we see on screens.
Mhm. I think often about when I was a teen, if I had a phone, I don't know what my life would be like today. And I'm being serious about that because it's I mean, I did some crazy things when I was a teenager, right? And if we all had phones in our hands, it was I mean, the photo evidence alone from the stupid things we did, right? Cuz you can just be a stupid kid and there's no evidence of remember that time when now there is, right? And people send photos and they're inappropriate photos. They alter photos. Now we have AI and kids are using AI. Like I have teenagers, so and I thought I was being so good by not letting them have a phone until they were a teenager in grade 8, like 13. And that was fine. And until they're just a little bit older and it just becomes who their whole group is, right? It's how they communicate. It's how they learn. It's how they do their schoolwork. It's how teachers will mark a paper and then boom, we'll be driving to field hockey and my daughter will say, "Oh, I got a 90 on my socials test." And I'm like, "How do you know that?" And she's like, "Oh, the teacher just marked it and I just saw it pop up." And it's like, "Oh,
Okay, so if that's happening, your kid basically cannot opt out of this technology. And they're receiving their marks through the phone. Like that in of itself is, I mean, I think the dependence on ed tech has become questionable, quite frankly. I think that if we in it, I spend a lot of time in schools, and if you talk to schools, a lot of them will say, if we knew what we knew now and we could go back 10 years, would we have made the same decisions to invest in this much technology? Maybe not. What becomes really important if you are having conversations with your school, I think, is the way in which they're using this technology and what they're teaching around it. So we used to use the term media literacy. I don't know if you remember media literacy, critical of the media. It really comes out of the Vietnam War era where we started to be kind of critical of propaganda. Then in the 90s, the term digital literacy emerges to encompass the needs of the internet. And digital literacy within education is really about how we use a computer, how we use an iPad. And kids are pretty good at figuring out how to do that on their own now. We don't really need to teach them how to use an iPad, but a lot of the ed tech that we still have is based on this digital literacy idea, which is we need to make them digitally literate. They need to be able to use this technology. I am more interested now in algorithmic literacy. So, the way in which algorithms work, the way in which they're feeding us content, and that we need to be critical of that. Or AI literacy, which is really being critical of these new technologies and understanding how they work so that you can kind of take greater control over them. And so, I think when we're grappling with the education space, the more in which we can have conversations with our school leaders about moving towards a more critical approach to technology is a good thing. But what you raise is a situation that so many kids are in now, which is we say social media is pretty bad for you. You're getting really, really addicted. You limit your screen time, but also do all your homework on screens. Also, be on screens all the time in order to get ahead. And that is an incredibly confusing thing for any of us, let alone a teenager. That's a really complex mixed message. And that's why a total abstinence approach just doesn't work because screens are now so wholly integrated into our lives. And so, although we can, let's say, hold off giving our kid a phone until they are, you know, 13, even 16, that birthday will come. That age will come. And we do need to equip them appropriately to navigate this terrain. And that's why I wrote this book, because it's really hard to parent through something you yourself didn't grow up with. It's like near impossible.
are we lonelier even though we're more connected?
Brilliant question. Is it a space of collectivity and connectivity, or is it a space of isolation and fragmentation? And the answer is probably both, all of the above. And I think being aware of these complexities is so important. It is not like often the analogy is made of the cigarettes, the cigarette bans that came in and the anti-smoking campaigns. And yes, there are some things that are comparable, but you can live without a cigarette. It's very hard to now live without digital technology. And so I would say the the biggest thing you can do is decide that you are going to move away from being a passive consumer into being an active participant. You can decide that you're going to start to take control of these processes and be much more intentional about your usage. What do you want the technology to do for you? What do you not want it to do? Like all those extra bells and whistles that don't make you feel good, remove it. And if that means I need to reinstall a home phone, or if that means I need to get a bedside clock, because actually I shouldn't have this in my bedroom with me anymore, whatever that means for you and for your family, start to make active choices. And where you think actually the analog life might be better here, that is the non digital life, the 90s version of this was maybe better, go for that. In the spaces where you think, actually, this technology is really serving me and I'm actively making the choice to use it, and we as a family are going to do that, great. But make a choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. One of the things we like to do on the podcast is thank our guests for being here by asking them to choose a Canadian registered charity. You chose the Canadian Cancer Society, and so we're going to make a donation in your name as a thank you for you being here, Kaitlyn. So thank you for choosing the Canadian Cancer Society. I love what you just said, and I think that you know, readers of your book or anybody listening will also appreciate that you're not saying like, "Hey, let's take our phones and throw them out." We can't throw our phones out. We can't. They're actually a very powerful gift, really. Like how we can FaceTime. I could FaceTime you, on Christmas and say, "Hey, how's it going?" Like imagine that. Just like you said, we're doing this podcast. So many good things. So when we think about how we can build a healthier future. You just touched on it, right? Let's talk about some concrete things. I look at my phone. I have a lot of apps on there. Some of them I don't even know what they are. I have no idea. I guess I loaded it in, looked at it, and it's still there. Is that one way? Could I go through and just start deleting?
Go and do a deep clean of your phone. That's a great first step. Strip back, decide what I actually need the phone to do, and then maybe give yourself a few little treats, what you want the phone to do, and then get rid of the rest. And for those treats, those whatever those applications are for you, I'd also do a digital spring clean in that application and go on unfollowing sprees.
So are you saying that the 5,000 people I follow on Instagram, I probably are you suggesting that I don't know those 5,000 people?
Maybe they don't all serve you. And they like, what do they what is it do what is this technology doing for you? How is it improving your life? And so make decisions about that. You can also do little things to make it less addictive. Like I'm a big fan of grayscaling, where you go into your color filters in your settings, flip the phone to grayscale, and all the color will wash out of it, and it'll just be less addictive. And you can set it up so that when your phone switches on to your home Wi-Fi, it will immediately go into grayscale. So when you're home around your family, it's less addictive.
Stop. You can do that?
That will I promise if you do that this evening with your family, you will want to look at your phone less.
Well, even thinking about looking at in gray makes me like, ew.
Exactly.
But I feel like that would be hard for me to even do that, to even make that happen, because I'm thinking about gray and going, ew, that's unappealing.
Right. Okay, so that's green juice. So in the book, I use a food style pyramid, right? This food style pyramid to think about what are the things that are nutrient rich about our digital consumption and what of it is junk food. And I have this pyramid and you can think about what your digital diet might look like. And so maybe for you, scrolling through Instagram in full color is like eating ice cream. And you might want to think how often you do that. It's a treat. Whereas calling a relative, whereas answering your emails, there are things that are your green vegetables, and those are good things that you're doing in digital technology, and you want to keep doing that and doing more of it.
I saw you say that, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to our food, when it comes to all of these things in our lives, they are regulated. Like things are regulated and watched and studied and, reports. But social media is the wild, wild west.
Yeah, we don't have the same consumer protections as we do with most everything else that we consume. And and it's important that you're aware of that, actually. That if you're
Right.
going to climb this mountain, you're doing so without a harness. We're used to our governments looking after us. And right now, in this space, you're gonna have to look after yourself.
Good advice. So what is the bright side?
The bright side is there is a boom in public awareness right now. There is a boom. I work with a lot of groups, policymakers, and right now within um, the U.S., I work with Count on Mothers, which is I love like angry mama bear energy. I just they get things done. And they have fed into a bill that's being put forward by a Democratic and a Republican senator. And this bill is the Algorithmic Accountability Act, and it will essentially strip Section 230. Section 230 is the protection. It's 30 years old, but it's the protection under which social media companies are housed, which means they are not culpable for the content posted on their platforms. And if it is stripped, it means that anyone who sees harm online could potentially sue them. It will completely change the landscape here. And I think that the fact that you have both Democrats and Republicans starting to put this forward, that you have moms who are informing themselves so that they can lobby and activate around this, there is great, great hope that we are going to see change, that you won't have to do this all by yourselves. You won't have to climb this mountain without a harness, that we will have democratic protections as we do for so many other things.
That is a bright side for sure. We are out of time, and I was just thinking, gosh, we could probably talk for like a few hours just about misinformation and all kinds of other things, but it's a topic that keeps on giving. Kaitlyn, I cannot thank you enough for this. Honestly, your book, I know you have the UK version and the American version with you, not the Canadian version, but there it is right there.
Here's the American version.
So good. Smartphone Nation. There you go. Available wherever you find your favorite books. And of course, you can find Kaitlyn on Instagram at Kaitlyn, that's Kaitlyn Regehr, Regehr. All of her stuff is on her Instagram, and you're a gem, Kaitlyn.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.